Hello, hello. I'm back. It is Tuesday night. We are on the couch. Can't really see it, but it's here with the People's Pride Project. Y'all know me, Madam Facilitator. My friends call me Sheena, but you know. Tonight, I am here with Khetnu Nefer, founder, organizer, mastermind behind the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering and Gullah Geechee Herbal in general. And today, y'all know how I get down with my plants and knowledge of that nature. That's what we do. So I have a guest that can bring all that and then some. So here we go. Hello, hello. How are you?
Greetings, Madam Facilitator. How are you?
I'm
Good.
doing well. Doing well. Thank you very, very much for joining me and bringing all of your knowledge and expertise. And we're just going to have a good talk with the people.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So, where do we begin with this? And why was it important for you to start with Gullah Geechee herbal versus it could have been anything?
It could have been anything. I am an unapologetic Gullah Geechee woman from Johns Island, South Carolina. So, my maternal grandmother, Victoria Murray, was what I know now a community herbalist, and she used to babysit me in my early formative years, and so I would go for her and watch her make things. And at the time, I didn't, I was a little girl, so I didn't really understand the importance of what she was doing, but I did witness it. And so it just was like an early primer for me to see how, as Gullah Geechee people, we were sustainable before it became eco-friendly and, the hip thing to do. This was how we lived. And the Gullah Geechee culture and the Gullah Geechee people, we are direct descendants of those enslaved individuals who came from West Africa, from various areas, Sierra Leone, Mali, Angola, Liberia, Nigeria, and all throughout the West Coast, because we were brought for our skills, rice cultivation, and the first cowboys were from Angola, and they came to James Island, South Carolina. um, so it's like those aspects of who we were and our professionalism and knowledge and information has been retained for a lot of years. The Gullah Geechee Nation spans from Jacksonville, North Carolina, down to Jacksonville, Florida, and 100 miles in. So that all of those people who grew up in that area, a lot of people say my grandma was Geechee, and they live in Philly, and they didn't realize that exodus of Gullah Geechee people who left for better opportunities and things like that. But a lot of the traditional things were maintained, from the herbal practices to the language to the mannerisms and the adages and things like that. So that's why it was important for me to maintain that and preserve that, because people are trying to say now that the Gullah Geechee is a dying culture because these areas are being gentrified and whitewashed and commodified, to, to say the least. And so it's so important for us, those of that culture, to not only preserve it but to maintain it. And so the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering was an ancestral assignment, and I was saying that before it became in vogue. It was my ancestral assignment. It was a download that I received while attending another herbal conference, that I was supposed to be doing the same thing, which I had no idea what that was and what that looks like. But shout out to Ellie Cruz of the New Orleans, the NOLA Herbal Gathering, who gave me the template, and I just kind of, mixed and matched and, trial and error, figured it out on my own. And now we're in our third year coming up this year. So it's a place that I envision to have a sacred space for Black and Indigenous herbalists and community to come and converge and learn from one another, because we haven't had that space. We've always been adjunct to, and I've attended some of the larger herbal gatherings, and you can count the number of Black people, not just BIPOC people, but Black people on one hand. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of these things that these people are teaching weren't indigenous to them. You know what I'm saying? So it was like y'all repackaging this information that is ours and selling it back to me. And then the other part of that was too is that those conferences are not affordable. You
Mm,
know, I've gone to them on scholarship myself, and so it's very important to have a space that's not only available but affordable so that those in the community who are interested or who may not have had the opportunity prior to have a space to come to and learn from people who look like them and who
mm.
are, maintaining traditions from people who look like them. So that's why it was important to do that for me. It wasn't anything that I, set out to do. I had no intentions of doing anything of the sort. But, being a child of the universe and a prodigy of my ancestors, it was very important for me to take the baton and run with it.
I like to say we go where we're led. So it's just like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. He said do it, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Um, Now you touched on a couple things, especially which is close to my heart because it annoys like the skin off of my body. The commodification and the repackaging. Especially now with social media and everybody has access to everything and everything's for everybody. And it's like, no, it's not.
Right.
And that's okay that it's not.
Right.
So how do you specifically, I'm sure you come up against it or have to deal with that in your lane. How do you feel about that sort of I don't want to call it a money grab, even though it is. But
It is. It's a money grab. It really is. And the paper trail proves it. You know what I'm saying? And because if you look prior to George Floyd, like I said, at these herbal schools, at these herbal conferences, they always had like that one token black person. So it looked like, yes, we are diversified and we are, we're culturally aware, but it's not. And then I've heard of instances where they did, have a person of color or a black person, I should say, to be more specific, because we are a different segment of the population. Nothing against other people of color, but I feel like we have been um, underrepresented and underserved for a long time, and to be lumped in with everybody else who still has privilege is a problem for me. But it's like, they have been repackaging this information and commodifying it, and when they get that black person to teach, they may not make as much as the other people, they may not have as much access to other things like the other people, um they sequestered to do. So it's like you value us enough to like glean the information, but it's like, where is the equity in all of that, at the end of the day? And so, and historically, we've been, um, how can I put it? We were taught what we were doing was bad and it's voodoo and it's evil, but you take it and resell it and make it like it's okay. So that's been a problem for me once I started really realizing what was happening. And so this is an opportunity to right that wrong, and that reclamation, we're in that time period, and I think that's what the C word, because I don't like to say the whole word, the C word has taught us in this time, that it's time for us to go back to basics and look back to Big Mom and them and Auntie
mhm,
and them and the things that they were doing, and reclaiming that. And even if we commodify, I don't have a problem with that to an extent, because I do feel like there is a part of service that we have to give back
mhm,
to the community. So I don't feel like
mhm.
everything needs to have a price tag, but living in the Western society that we live in, is
Right.
commercialization, is it is what it is. But that's where programs like this and events like this is helping to decolonize not only that mindset, but also to help us regain and retap into, because I don't feel like we lost it. We just don't use it. We don't know it.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because some of us still have, grandmothers and great aunties and uncles and stuff like that, but we just don't tap into that information that they have, or we just say, oh, that's old people stuff. Like, I don't want to learn that stuff or what.
Hmm.
But if it's packaged in this hip, nouveau
Right.
thing, then you want to,
Right.
lean to it and pay them $1,200. And it's just like, but you could have got that free from Big Mama. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it, it doesn't make sense to me, but at the same time, I get it because that was by design. So it was the hope that we would forget and not utilize and not take advantage of this information. So it's so important for us now to really tap into that and to, each other as resources, but also provide spaces for us to
Hmm.
collectively use our resources together.
Hmm. I like to say, not that we have to relearn, we have to remember. Because it's in
Mm-hmm.
there. It ain't go
Yeah.
nowhere. Like you said, it didn't go anywhere. And even if you don't have necessarily access to the generations before, it's still in there. Like there's an innate thing when you're at the stove, when you're in the kitchen, when you're, it's an automatic. Like we say, we don't use measurements. We just hear it in your ear. Okay, that's enough. Like it's in there.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So go ahead.
No, I said I agree because you know in the Gullah Geechee Nation, we like to call it freehand cooking. You know what I'm saying? So there's no receipt, like my grandma would say. There's no receipt. You freehand. You put whatever go in there. If that's
Hmm.
being good to you, then you put that in there, and you know just enough. A sprinkle of this, a dab of that.
Hmm.
We've heard these things. This is nothing new, but we choose to have the fancy, cookbooks and iPad, uh, things, and it's just like it's not necessary, and you don't always have to seek out, information outside of yourself. Like you said, it's intrinsically inside of us, and it's very innate in this. Now having the wherewithal to want to tap into it. And I think that's the bigger issue is just not knowing how, but why also, so why should I look at myself? Why should I cultivate this information? And then how do I use this? How do I maintain this? How do I share this? And how do I preserve this?
So, if we're going to talk about reclaiming our herbal traditions, number one, how do we reclaim them? And number two, what exactly are we reclaiming? Like, what are these traditions that, you know?
You just said it. Recipes. you know, Culinary, your food is medicine. Make medicine that food, food that medicine. So that's number one. So it's like like I talk about the recipes, Aunt Shirley's potato salad and
Mhm.
all of those things. It's not something that again has to be very advanced or intricate. It could be something as simple as that. Oh,
Mhm.
when I got sick, grandma used to make me this tea with life everlasting and mullein and blah 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 blah. It's that oral herbal traditions that
Mhm.
can be passed down. Those culinary traditions that could be passed down, but it's evident like a lot of these when you look at these cooking shows and things like that, especially in the South, you see these prominent restaurants, and they like, yeah, I learned this from my grandmother, but she learned that from her nanny who was black, or from you know what I'm saying. So this is what I'm talking about. This is
Zin.
we saying the reclamation is
Mhm.
taking back those things that we originated. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all didn't fry chicken like that. Y'all ain't probably didn't even fry chicken. You know what I'm saying? So to know to put this blend of seasonings and herbs and spices and things like that, that wasn't the the norm. And so now it's time for us when it comes to other herbal traditions, but it's also reclaiming our health. This
Yes.
C word era, I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons of that. So we're reclaiming our health. And with that, it comes with using herbs and alternative, I would hate to say alternative, complementary lifestyle. So it's not just the herbs, it's the how
Mhm.
we massage one another, how in birth work we came together as women,
Yes.
regardless if we were related or not, like we were there.
Mhm.
These are the things that the reclamation needs to happen in, and because we've lost that, and we've lost that sense of community, that sense of village, and we become so independent and me, You know what I'm saying? That now when it's time for you to get help and things like that, you have no resource, you have no pool of people, and then you want to say nobody want to help me. This isn't this, and blah 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 blah. But you have an infinite amount of resources around you, but it's because you don't know that this exists, and then you don't tap into it, so it's not there. So the reclamation comes from us those things, especially traditionally, that your family did. We all have something that we remember seeing an aunt, uncle, grandma, cousin do, and we say, "Oh, we don't do that no more." I remember when. Let's get all of that back, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and taking all of that back. So when it comes to the herbal tradition, it's the same thing, you know, and like I said, it could be something simple as that one herb that you used to get when you had a sniff or when your feet were swelling, you know what I'm saying? When you had high blood pressure. The thing with my family was you get some Spanish moss and put that in your shoe and keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? And so you don't hear about these things anymore unless, you know, your family has been preserving that. So now we need that person to be that family historian in each family to record these things and talk to the elders. And because we've lost that too. We've lost that intact thing that we had with our elders, like sitting at our elders'
Right.
feet and just having a conversation, not just picking their brain for information, but just checking in on them and seeing how they're doing, you know. And so that's what we're reclaiming. It's more than just the herbs. The herbs are just part of that, but it's the whole ritual that we are and who we are as Black people and melanated people and indigenous people. We need to get back to basics on the simple things that we used to do as community and tap into that and utilize that again.
Well, now that you've just given a whole commercial for the People's Pride Project and why we exist and what we do, thank you ever so kindly. But I I 150% agree with that because we always talk about what we don't have and can't do because we've made ourselves so external
Mm-hmm.
where we have to this whole westernized idea of the individuality or not necessarily individuality but I got to get it on my own. I got to do it by my own. I have to exist by myself. Like, we're not meant for that.
No,
Especially melanated people. We come from these places of generational living, of communal homes, it wasn't unusual to see aunties, uncles, grandparents, and like everybody together. Not, well, you got to get married, you're 18, get out.
out, get out.
You're out of high school, get out, figure it out.
Right.
No.
And you out there flopping, just a flopping like a flounder. And it's like, but my kid is out there, you know, and it's like, what is that? And the beautiful thing is, and I wish that every African American can go to Africa and witness it in play. Because I went to Mali last January, and that was my first time on the continent, and I witnessed that. Even though I grew up kind of in a communal style, and
Mhm.
that's one of the traditions that we as Gullah Geechee people have preserved is that we live compound style. So you have, you know, 5 houses or trailers in one yard, and it's the auntie, the mama.
Mhm.
So I grew up with that. I did know that, but to go to my host's family's house and see grandma, grandpa, their children, the grandchildren, the great grandchildren, nieces, uncles, everybody eating out of one pot, everybody cooking together, communing together, and they just hang out together. Like, I don't care what time of the day we went to the family's house, because he always used to say, we going to the family's house.
Mhm.
We went to the family's house, and people were there chilling, family. And he would say, that's my cousin, that's my niece, that's my sister, that's her daughter, that's her. What? Like, and it was just like, everybody just come over here and chill. I love it. And they just eat and they just build and they just loved on us. And I was like, man, if every African American family could be like that, like, what if we could have that as a uh option, you know, and really live it and embody it? And how would that transform how we are living now as, you know, Africans in America? You
Mhm.
know, so it's so powerful. And I think if we don't witness that example, we tend to dismiss it because it's just like that's not feasible, that's not doable. But there
It
are people that are
is.
doing it because other cultures do it. So it's just like, why do we think it's good for them and not good for us? And it's
That
something that we came from.
that's the conditioning. That's the mind fuck. Like that's the intentional schism that's been created because we only do that here. It's only here.
Yeah.
Like you look at brown people throughout the globe,
Hmm.
we're only like that here. But somehow we seem or we get portrayed as if we are the black experience. But we're remnants of like pieces that have been this amalgam of disconnect
Yeah.
that has tried to create something just to hold on to the little bits.
Yeah.
So it's this, and man, like every family, we got issues.
Of course. Of
We
course.
got issues,
Yeah,
but
and it's not a monolith. That's the thing
right.
too. You have to take that into account. It's not a monolith, but we have the template. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So we can say, okay, I like that, but I don't want to do that, this, that, and the other. But we just don't practice the basics. And
Right.
so that's where that, like you said, that disconnect is there. That um it's just it's just so random that we pick and choose when we want to be community, and
Right.
then it's like, okay, well, that didn't work for me, and and so it's like, no, we have to embody that mindset all the time and put it into practice so that it is regenerated through the generation, so they see that, okay, this is what works, this is what we come from, this is the standard, and not wanting to do anything outside of that. And it's just like, how do we make that reconnection? How what is it that we need to do to ensure? And that's where it comes in from individuals like us, giving an example and showing, because I think that's a part of it too, is like when people don't see it, it just furthers the disconnect. So it's just like, how can I don't know what that is, so how can I connect to it? You know what I'm saying? So seeing it, and for those of us who know better to do better, and having that for people, I think that's so important.
I think reclamation in and of itself requires a certain level of audacity.
Yeah, oh, it does.
How dare you decide you're not going to do status quo XYZ?
Right.
How dare you go against the programming? And it's like, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in this, it's almost a cross between like a very delicate tightrope walk, but a bull in a china shop at the same time that's happening in this time with
Yeah.
this idea of we're going to be loud, we're going to take it back, we're going to have all of it's like there's a struggle happening.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can feel it. I'm sure you're seeing it in your practice, in your business. It's like we want it, but we don't know if we can have it and we don't know how to get it. And I don't know. I don't have the words for it right now, but it's in here because I'm feeling it. So, what what are your thoughts on that mending of the disconnect when we have things like the commodification and the the training up for separation and all of these things that have been so instilled in us, but the soul still wants what's supposed to be there?
Mm. I think, like I said, I think, seeing the example, and for those of us who have um started that reclamation process and are actually actualizing it and utilizing it, and then doing things like this and having events like the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering is giving people that space to witness, and so that they can now see, like, because it means sometimes I feel like it's a deep yearning and they just can't put their finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's something I'm missing, and something, because I feel like a lot of times that's why a lot of people are self-medicating and things like that, because they don't have that total
Right.
embracing of the
Mhm.
culture full on, and knowing that, okay, I don't have to suffer in silence, I don't have to self-medicate, I can go to this elder, I can go to my peer and have this conversation, because you never know, they may have been down that road and they can say, oh, hey, I recognize that, I've been through that, do this, and have that path. So even like having more rites of passage, and not only maybe
Yes.
for the children, but even now as adults, if we miss that window,
Yes.
still having a rites of passage process, because you know, I don't feel chronologically my age, and I'm 47. It's like I feel like there's things that I did not get,
Mm-hmm.
culturally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And I know if I had a process that kind of
Yes.
gave me that pathway to go along and know that, okay, this may happen to you, this is what you can do, this is something that you may experience, here's this herb for that, here, you know what I'm saying, or make this connection, go to this tree, this type of tree,
Yes.
like is that, I feel like that's what's something that, with that, and you can't commodify that, I don't care how much you try, you know what I'm saying. And it's like there's a huge difference, and even when you go to a class, you can really tell when that person is really impassioned and
Mm-hmm.
really involved and know what the hell they talking about, and not just can spit out,
Right.
Latin names and all of this other stuff, but who may have sat literally in front of this plant and had conversations with it and received downloads, and you know what I'm saying? It's a difference.
Yes.
It's a difference. And that's one thing, because by profession I'm a massage therapist, and I've had people who said to me, it's like, I've had massages all over the world, but it's something about when you touch me, it's completely different. And I don't think I'm the world's best massage therapist, but I might be the most passionate. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? And so I set that intention before I touch anybody. I just it makes a difference. And so I think having these key components for people to know that you just can't put a dollar sign on everything, and just because you pay for something, that don't mean that you're going to get something that you
Right.
truly need from it. So I think is like knowing and giving people what they need, and having those examples. I talk about it, I can say that 50,000 times, but sometimes you just don't know until you see it, or until you
Mm-hmm.
feel it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just having the right people who know how to not only bring that out of people, but helping them to make that connection. And I think that's why it's important. And no matter what the bad try to do, is like it's always going to be Trump, but it's that balance is there. Like good can't exist without evil, like without dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's just striking that, seeking that harmony, and then doing the things that you need to do to make that connection.
You're so right. Whew. Um, it's always funny to me how covert we've had to be with maintaining a lot of our traditions. Um, Number one, because, like you mentioned before, it's been told, we've been bought into this idea that our traditions are wrong. Let us adopt someone else's because those are somehow right. Whatever. And
And we
again,
were punished for it too, on top of
yes,
it. So it's like,
yes.
okay, I don't want you to be persecuted the way that I have. So
Mm-hmm.
not do that. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
but that's by design, you know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
that's where that colonization comes in. So yeah.
But I even to hear my own mother, and she'll be like, she doesn't necessarily process it the same way that I do, but she'll be quick to be like, "Oh, I saw my grandma do this, and I remember my grandma used to make this stuff, and she used to go outside." Like it becomes the storytelling. It becomes a random memory that just kind of comes up, and that's where we have to get back to, where we can have that sort of connection, even generations. That's my great grandmother. I've never met the woman, but I can still say, okay, she did this, so now I know how to do this.
Yeah.
These, and my mother looks, like I said, she looks at it through a slightly different lens than I do, but it's home, it's an understanding, it's, I know how to do this because I saw my elder do it, even if
Yeah.
she didn't necessarily explain why she was doing it, or I might not have gotten all the pieces,
Hmm.
but I know something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that attachment to not just one another, but to the work and to the recognition that comes from doing the work in community
Hmm.
is a necessary part, like you said, that has been missing
Hmm.
because we're so me right now. Or how can I get it the fastest? Or how can I be famous the quickest with the least amount of work? And
The ego
it's,
trip.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
All ego. Right.
So, with regard to herbal traditions specifically,
Mhm.
what do you feel are some things that are like you need to know? Where necessaries or some herbs that if you don't have nothing but this, you're still good.
Yeah. Culinary herbs are the number one. You know what I'm saying? Most people just think, oh, Black people season well. We season well because we are attached to the land. We are people of the land. And so these culinary spices are how we, uplifted their bland stuff, but it's how we feed ourselves too through
Mhm.
our food ways. You know what I'm saying? We brought specific plants seeds with us in our hair, not just because they were indigenous to our land, but we knew we used okra for this, especially in birth work and help the baby slide out. And,
Mhm.
lemon pepper is good for warming up the body and good for the circulation. And so it's just knowing like basic, like the culinary herbs, like rosemary, you know, um, even salt, like that preservation. And that's why I feel like with the high blood pressure and hypertension thing is more than just the salt intake. You gotta be mindful of the environment as well. And a lot of times dehydration on top of that. So it's just like, we just lost a lot of basic information. And like you said, sometimes we do things and because grandma did it, great grandma did it, and they never explained why, but they knew the benefits of it. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So even though if we don't get specific direction, we resonate to things. Everybody got that one spice in their kitchen, like I cannot get enough of this basil. You know what I'm saying? And you just gotta
Mhm.
realize, like, wow, this is really good heart medicine. It's really good for my mood. You know what I'm saying? You might have been in a funk for months and realized like when you started rocking with the visual, then it was like, wait, I feel great. I don't feel as down. I don't feel as you see what I'm saying? So it I think we tend to over intellectualize things a lot and we
Mhm.
very detailed specifics, but sometimes we dismiss our intuitive nature to resonate towards something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's not rocket science, you know what I'm saying? And you don't have to go through some fancy traditional herbal program to learn a whole bunch of things. If you just really sit with something and realize, like, okay, I'm I'm resonating with this a little bit more, and I've been eating this a little bit more. Why is that? And then
Mhm.
research that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not. I feel like there is no one size fits all when it comes to herbalism and even in reclamation because it looks different for everybody because I might like it in my food but you may like it in your bath, you know what I'm saying, or you may be a tea person and I might just like to garden, you know what I'm saying, so you may be just be growing herbs because it looks great ornamentally but
Mhm.
you may not ever ingest it, but you realize like when you do work around it and feel different, or just putting your hands in the soil, that's a whole different connection. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm talking about with the reclamation too. Is just like I shouldn't have. I don't want to pinpoint and dictate what you should learn. Is I
Mhm.
want you to tap into yourself and see what resonates with you, so you can reinitiate that connection. You know what I'm saying? It could be something as simple as sitting outside and getting that vitamin D. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like I'm always an outside person. I don't care how cold it get. I'm gonna sit outside because you know that connection and what it does for you and how that activates your melanin and how you feel, so you don't have seasonal depression. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is more important than anything else because I do find too when we tend to pinpoint herbs and things like that, but
Mhm.
people, like I said, they tend to over intellectualize it and then they harp on it, and then they don't really make no real connection because it was like because Khetnu said, and Khetnu's supposed to be the guru, and and that's not it because you may be allergic to it. You see what I'm saying? So
Right. Mm-hmm.
really sit with it and see. And that's not to say don't make try and initiate something, but
Right.
that's not to say like, okay, I never heard of that before. Life everlasting, what's that? Look it up and be like, oh, okay, rabbit tobacco, whatever, whatever, and read about it. Maybe seek it out. Get you some, put it in the like. That's what I want for reclamation. I want us to be more inquisitive. I want us to be more um enthusiastic, more,
Mm-hmm.
just really trying to see what it is that is going to help us as a whole and not just, on the physical level and see what these things can do for you spiritually. What can they do for you mentally? You know, so I think that's more important than anything else. And because I can pinpoint 50,000 things and people be like, oh, no, I don't like that. I don't want this on. I never heard of
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying? But I just want that process. I want people to initiate that process and look back and really go back into their childhood and see what was those things. Oh, yeah, I remember my grandma putting, this
Mm-hmm.
and looking it up. Why would she do that? Okay, properties of elderberry or this. Say, oh yeah, she made that elderberry syrup. Now I see why she made us do this in
It's
the winter
always
time.
like that.
Yeah, So that's what the reclamation process looks like for the individual, but as a collective and as a community, is now taking those severed connections and
Mhm.
then piecing them together. Oh, you got the elderberry? Okay, I got the
Yes.
Samuel, I got the such and
Yes.
such. I have the this and this. Oh, what do you use this for? Oh, I just this and this. I grow these. Oh, you grow that? Okay, so I'll have to buy it from Frontier. Okay, this is it. You see what I'm saying? So like that's what the reclamation comes in because now it becomes a collective opportunity for us to heal. It becomes a collective opportunity for us to commodify each other,
Mm-hmm.
in the works of each other and get that collective economic thing going and support and so that there is no person flopping out there like a flounder or feeling like they're out there by themselves when that's far from the truth because there's 10,000 people who feel the same way you do about elderberry. So you just haven't connected with them yet
Right.
or finding out how they use it because they may use it more than just in a syrup. They may use it in a tea. They may put it in a tincture, so
Yeah.
it's just making like my master teacher, Netta Uncle Rue says, making the uncommon connection common.
Right.
That's it. That's what the reclamation is making those uncommon connections common again.
And
Like,
it's okay. It's okay. That was the amen right there. That was all
yeah,
that.
there's like, yeah.
But you're so right because even when you were giving, the different examples of how people come into contact with different herbs and stuff, we each have an innate role in who we are in community, how we interact with each other and these different elements. So yeah, you might like to garden. What you garden becomes my tea, that becomes the birth workers this, that becomes the so you're completely right on that. It's like it all we all have our own way of relating
Yes.
and we really have learned or been taught to compartmentalize everything
Yes.
like it can only be done this way and we all have to do it the same way and it all no,
Mm-mm.
that's not how an ecosystem works.
It's not.
It's
And
not
we can't
at all.
survive that way, and
Mm-mm.
you can do it, but it's not going to be practical and it's not going to be sustainable. So what's
I
the
mean,
point?
I feel like this might be whatever. I feel like humans would get a lot farther if we just realized that we're animals that think we're better than everybody else.
Facts.
Because if we really pay attention to how animals work and to stop saying we're better and just pay attention and recognize how we do a lot of the similar things,
Mhm.
we'd get so much farther with a lot less stress
Yeah.
because it's just the cycles. of life and the way things work and the way everything has a role to play, we are, even in humanity, an ecosystem that
Yeah,
has to interact with all of these other ecosystems that are part of it. Like, come on now. We so busy trying to be top dog in everything that we just screwing up the whole situation.
yeah, thanks.
So
100. You preaching to the choir on that one because I truly believe that, and it's like, you know, and that again that goes back to the reclamation piece because traditionally we operate with nature.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And me and my love, we were talking the other day, and I was just telling him like years ago when I went to St. Lucia, like how they operated with the sun. It was like they got up mad early sunrise because they don't do daylight savings time.
Mm-hmm.
They got up mad early, and when the sun went down, because it seemed like it got darker earlier. But everybody, that's when things slowed down. People were inside. Like it made sense, and it was such a more restful piece. Even though I was in the big city and all that other stuff, but it seemed like things worked with me, and
Mm-hmm.
nature there really made me be like, wow, how amazing life is that? That you can just go on the side of the road and pick some lemongrass or some guava. You know what I'm saying? Just resonate with nature and really have that symbiotic relationship, and is not outside of yourself because you're just tapping in. You
Right.
know what I mean? And so I feel like as westernized humans in America, we are the ones who think we're better than everybody else because other countries they do the same thing. The reverence for nature is so high. Even in the impoverished countries, they still have certain things that they like, oh no, you can't step on that, or don't pick
Mm-hmm.
that, or you know what I'm saying? They just know how to operate with nature, and that reverence for nature in other ways is just so natural. And we have tried to, manipulate everything, everything that's natural. You got fake sunlight lamps, and you got like, is this take your behind outside? What? How much more? 10 minutes. You don't need a whole lot. Like, so you just gonna have this lamp and sit in front of this, as opposed to taking yourself outside and getting some fresh air and not this compressed air that's coming through this machine. Like it's just the whole disconnect. But I feel again it's by design so that they can
Mm-hmm.
control not only the narrative but the life as well. So you
Right.
just don't have any say so because now you become programmed. No, that's not natural. That's not natural. That's not. And it's like, yes, this is. This going to the ground. Why would this not be considered natural? But
Isn't
it's
it wild how they've taken what the simplest things are and made them more complicated? Like, that should be easy. Why
yeah,
are you making it like it's some, outrageous idea to go outside and walk barefoot? You can't do that. Oh my God. Yes, I can. That's what my feet are made to do.
yeah, right. Shoes didn't exist. Man-made shoes. Like so. They, hello.
And some
Like
things are supposed to happen. Now, yes, granted, we've made strides and, you know, made
yeah.
things more comfortable. Right. But there's some things that we're neglecting and it's starting to show.
Yeah.
Like, we're making it more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree. I totally agree. And as I get into my junior elderdom, like the more simplistic, and I see how why the elders get more into that simplistic mode, and
Mm,
not just because they didn't grow up with all the stuff that we have now, but they just realize how much more ease life is because it's so simplified. Like I got this is my process, it's basic, but it works, and I can rock with that as opposed to having that 30 step makeup tutorial. Like I'll just be like, I'm gonna just slap some foundation on and some lip gloss, and we gonna call it a day.
yeah. Like, you look so pretty. What'd you do? I washed my face. That's what I did. I washed my face, might rub some coconut oil, and I'm done. Like,
That's it. So we complicate everything.
Yes.
We do. That it's become the human race. And it's such a disadvantage to what we were put here to experience.
Mm.
And I think that um those who have gotten it, these are the people we tend to glorify and things like that, because we recognize that, wow, they they tapped in, they get it. And I don't
Mm.
know how to get that, and that's why people tend to seek all these external information and people and things like that, but they just don't recognize. Sometimes it just takes something as simple as sitting still with their self and just breathing and listening, just being, just not doing anything, like not trying to think about what the next thing is. Just being still, just breathing, just being simply you.
Yes.
That's it.
And that is the most difficult part for some people, to just be and to just be themselves.
Yeah, just
Like,
you. Not nobody's mama, not nobody's sister, not just you for that 5 minutes. Not
mm-hmm.
even 30 minutes, not an hour, 5 minutes, and just sit and be you for 5 minutes. What does that look like? And then they say, well, I don't know who I am. And that's why, because you haven't sat with yourself,
Right.
figure out who you are outside of being that employee, that sister, that lover, that girlfriend, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
community activist,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's just like, and I feel like that is a part of a huge problem of what we have going on in the world now, because people don't know who they are, and they've been dictated to, oh, you black, you're not supposed to know how to do this. You're white, you do this. You're green, you can't be walking around the streets. Like, it's just like, what, people aren't allowed to just be because they don't know how to be themselves. So it's
And you know what's crazy? A lot of that is really self imposed.
yeah,
It's like, oh, well, so and so won't allow me. How are they going to stop you?
right.
What's you are afraid of the potential consequences, or you're afraid of the potential backlash, or not being liked, or not being popular, or not being what they tell you you're supposed to be striving for,
Mm-hmm.
when the reality, none of that matters.
No, at the end of the day, they don't.
None of it.
Yeah. No.
I'll be like, listen, y'all only, you get one shot that you're gonna remember real well. What's gonna come next? That'll be your next shot. But you get one in this body with all you got going on.
Yeah.
So when they lie me down at the end of the, don't bring me back talking about I missed this and I regret it. Let me go, because I did it all for me this one go round. And we're afraid to just do that and release that. Like, come on, y'all.
Yeah. No. That's so true. I hope that hit home for somebody, because it's the truth. And it's like, once you get to know you, it's it's a whole nother ball game. It really is. And it's something that I feel like the fear of what is inside, because we've been,
Mhm.
fed all this propaganda and different things like that. I think that's the biggest challenge. Is just like, how can I go against this grain, because this is what I've been taught and this is what I've witnessed, and it's like, but that doesn't have to be your truth, and more times than not, it's not. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So what does your life look like for you, outside of all these other things? What does that look like? And how, going forward, what does the future look like? We For the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering, this year we're having an Afrofuturism workshop, and I did an interview with the sister a couple of days ago, and she was just talking about that. Like, when she does a vision board, she was like, "What does 300 years from now look like? We want to talk about your 1 year goal, your 3 year goal, your 5 year goal. What does 300 years in the future looks like for your family? What
Mhm.
does what are you looking to change culturally, community wise? What does that look like? Because
Mhm.
like I said, we so me focused. But in that introspection, like what does that look like going forward, like way past tomorrow and 3 years from now, and you want to kick it into room with your girls, like
Right.
what does your family own the state of Minnesota? Like do they, you know what I'm saying? Like what plant have you discovered that have been growing in the forest for 80,000 years and nobody decided to like give it some attention because everybody want to, use up all the other stuff because somebody else told them that it works. And it's like,
Right.
there's 2,000 other plants that do the same thing that you don't have to over harvest. You know what I'm saying? What does that look like? But for you, what do
Right.
you want for yourself? You know what I'm saying? And it's just such a crazy mind process. And last year, was that last year? Year before last, I wrote a book, 28 Days to a Soulful Life, because it was like for me, it was like it's like 28 lessons that I wish I had when I was younger. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And it made me really think like if I could help somebody else tap into themselves so that they could see that everything that they went through wasn't for naught, but at the same time it was like what are the lessons that you are extracting from this so that going forward you don't repeat them so
Right.
until you learn the lesson, but also how is that going to impact your community, your family, your and then again being that example for somebody else. So
Right.
that's was the premise. So it's like, you are your biggest competitor. You should be trying to outdo you yesterday. You know what I'm saying? How can you improve on you from yesterday? you know,
Mm-hmm.
and build it on that mindset. And I think if we each take that approach and reclaim that part of ourselves, then everything else is going to fall into line because you're going to then see the things that you need, that herb, that connection, that space, that, whatever it is going to, manifest for you. And it wouldn't be a foreign thing because you were like, oh, I saw that.
Right.
I I knew that was going to happen. Like how is that? Because you tapped into yourself and you know, utilize that amazing intuitive power that we all have. Like we all got these people out here. I'm a psychic. This. We all psychic. We all intuitive. We just don't tap into it. And
Right.
it's now that is what part of the reclamation looks like. Tapping into self.
Listen. Part of that, and this is a whole other conversation. Everybody wants to be special. You're not special, but you can be important. There's a
Yeah.
difference. You don't have to be special to be important.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
everybody wants to be the biggest, the baddest, the look at me, look at me. You
Going
don't
to
have to be special. I know we want to feel special,
yeah.
but you're still important. And even going along with what you're saying as far as planning that out for your future, like indigenous and a lot of cultures think 7 generations. And it's true biologically, you're carrying the physical traits of 7 generations forward or forward and backward. So
Mhm.
it's a very real thing to look at what that's going to look like and recognize how what you do today for yourself
Mhm.
affects those that are going to come after you, whether you want it to or not. It's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah.
So to be conscious of that and make decisions based on that, like even me now, I find myself when I take pictures, I'm like, oh, my grandkids gonna think Granny was fine. Look like I just, I be like, girl, yes,
Yes.
like Granny, that was you, yes, girl, you ain't seen me, like
I love it.
that's already in my mindset. I tell people, I'm gonna be a badass ancestor. Watch, like those things already start going through my head because I'm
Yeah.
weird like that. Don't mind me, but
I love it. I love it.
but this idea of the continuous connection is what, to me, we have to build the reclamation around.
Mm-hmm.
The connection is tethered both forward and backward, and we want to pit generations against each other. And we talk so badly about each other, the young talking about the old talking about the young, and who's not doing that tether. I see it on your face. That string is pulled in both directions.
Yeah.
And until we recognize that and do the work, because as I heal myself, I heal those that have come before and I prepare those that are coming forward, you know? And that is where, for me, that reclaiming of self, that reclaiming of traditions is so necessary. Because
Mhm.
everything I do, either my kids are going to see it, or like I said, my grandkids down the line. Like I even look at myself now with my herbal studies or my birth studies or anything that I'm learning, I take
Mhm.
notes because someday I'm convinced there's somebody's going to have my notebooks in their hands, and I want them to be able to understand. Like I want that. You're not going to have to do like I did and go digging. It's here,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
I feel like that part is something that we have to awaken within ourselves, not
Mhm.
just learning these different traditions, but understanding how the connection happens
Yes.
and being willing to be responsible
Mm.
in both ways.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, I'm responsible to my parents, just like they're responsible to me, just like I'm responsible, but we have to keep that mindset. And I think that's where the disconnect is really happening. That
Mhm.
lack of responsibility to say
Yes.
what I do is going to affect. And that
Mhm.
doesn't mean lose your way. That doesn't mean live for someone else at
Mhm.
all. Because, like I said, you get one shot. Don't bring me back. I don't want it. But recognize that that tether is continuous.
Mhm.
Be 6, 7, 8 generations down the line, they're gonna find me somewhere looking just to sitting up. Okay.
You see the dress like all the time, like for real, like so you just ain't got no. No mm-mm. There you go. Mhm. Yeah.
I
Yes.
tell, I'm like, I'm the finest 125-year-old you ever seen.
Yes. 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 I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's but it's necessary. Like we have to, like I said, we have to think about that. Like you said, the tether is real, and even though I live in Washington, DC, my Gullah Geechee tether is strong. They like, mm-mm. And even though when I've lived back at home, I used to struggle. As soon as I move away, it's just like things just open up for me and they blossom. But the tether was so strong, and I would go back and they would like call me back and this. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until a couple of years ago that they really revealed to me, like, when you say you had to live here, child, you got work to do here. And I was like,
Right.
oh man, you could have told me that 10 years ago before I moved to Chicago in the damn wintertime. So it's like, but again, I was open to receive that message and to really make that assessment for myself and know, okay, this is what I felt. That's why I couldn't make the connection there because
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily tied to the land, but I have a responsibility that's tethered to the land.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that just makes so much more sense. And, not long after that, that's when the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering was birthed. And it was just like, and it just made so much sense. And it hasn't been easy, but it's been very rewarding. And so it just made me see like, okay, this is what connection looks like. This is what stewardship looks like. This is
Mm.
community, active
Mhm.
looks like for me. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, okay, that's why I got to
Mm.
keep moving when how I'm moving. And even though and they never said it was gonna be easy, and I don't always look for things with ease because I feel like a lot of times we don't get the lessons and you know the platitudes and all that great stuff so easy because we have no frame of reference. But
Right.
um but yeah, but it's been a very arduous but rewarding journey. And so I don't, it's definitely a labor of love, but it's also been a very good education, not only about myself, but my role in community and
Mhm.
as a steward and as a practitioner,
Mm.
as a daughter, as as a woman,
Yes.
so it's like, that nurturing, that creation. And so it's so amazing to witness for myself, because if I told 20-year-old Khetnu that she would be doing any of this or seeing any of this, she would have laughed me out the building. Like,
Mm-mm.
whatever, old lady, I don't know what you talking about. Like, for real? Like, what? Mm-mm. So it's so that's what reclamation looks like for me, to an extent, because it's like I'm not only digging in my history and all of that, but I'm also reclaiming that part of my tradition, um,
Mm.
that is necessary for it to be, you know, forwarded and pitched to that 300, year old person in the future, and they're gonna be like, y'all should, they was on it, you know what I'm saying? And I exist because this existed, you know what I'm saying? These opportunities and this information was not lost, and even though they may
Right.
not use real plants in the future, who knows? But it's like that information will always be there intrinsically, and
Mhm.
and that's why it's so important that we implant that now, so that it's not lost, and that seed can germinate whenever, you know what I'm saying? It's like when it's activated, it's like, okay, oh, now y'all ready for me? Okay, now I'm gonna sprout, now I'm gonna grow. Yep.
And that's, I believe, more than anything, is our job.
Yep.
And I like that. Something was sitting in me like, it's not about community activism, it's community activation.
Activation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because we can protest this is and this, but like, what is the solution? Like, are we just gonna keep bucking against everything?
Mhm.
Are we going to activate the resources that we have right here, so we don't have to rely on them respecting us and
Exactly.
including us and all of that, when we can just
Exactly.
have our own? And then it'll be the reverse thing. They'll be like, oh, they won't let me into their singing bubble. But it's like, yeah, when I was trying to rock with you, y'all weren't trying to hear it. So, I mean,
Right.
listen, holla.
Pretty much. And I mean, historically, that's the way it's always happened. But, you
Yeah,
know, that's
yeah,
another conversation.
yeah,
Um, so before we go, because we've reached our hour.
yeah,
It was a very good conversation.
yeah,
Let's get the details real quick about the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering. I know it's the end of March, like the last weekend or the weekend before that in March,
yeah.
right?
The 26th and 27th of March
Mm-hmm.
2020, on beautiful Johns Island, South Carolina, which is my hometown, which is outside of Charleston, South. It's a herbal conference. I know people would say the festival. I'm like, it's not a festival. Gullah Geechee people are not coming to perform for you. This is an educational herbal conference for Black and Indigenous herbalists and community. So if you're a birth worker, you're a healer, you're a body worker, you're a hoodoo practitioner, you IFA, you ATR, whatever it is that whatever label fits your boat, you're welcome. But it's open to everyone, and that is ancestor land, because I gotten that too. Like, why you letting other people come? Because they need to witness what they try to squelch. But so it's important that we do it for ourselves, though, because this is not a show for them. And and my instructors know they have the autonomy to say, this for Black people only. Can everybody else leave the room? So they have that autonomy. But it's 2 days of educational workshops. We do have Gullah Geechee artisans. We have workshops on indigo dyeing and the importance of using indigo as a revolutionary tool,
Oh, wow.
um, Afrofuturism, and how we can tap into our epigenetic self, and what does that look like going forward in the future. We got a workshop on what happened to the flu. What happened to the flu? You
Right.
know, so it spans the gamut. We have a workshop on our mother's medicine, and again, that reclamation of generational, rituals and things like that. So it spans the gamut. If you go to the website GullahGeecheeHerbalGathering.com, all the workshops are listed there. Um, It's $147 for the property. It's my family's property. Property. We down a long dirt road. We outside, so all you germaphobes you worried about the C word, like we outside, and we operated this conference was birthed at the bubble of the pandemic. That first March of
Mm-hmm.
2020, it we things were shutting down when we were driving back from South Carolina, and we were like, "What the world is going on?" You know what I'm saying? But we've been without incident. And I've been saying all this time, like, if there's any place in the world where you want to be during the pandemic, is where the Black and Indigenous healers
Healers
are
are right.
operating. That's where you want to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So please come out. It's a family friendly event. We do have a one children's workshop scheduled for right now, because I didn't have a lot of children over the last 2 years, but hopefully people bring their children in. And I'm willing to add more children's workshop if the children are there. Children 15 and under are free with a paid adult. So come through. It's an amazing event. People have made such long lasting networking connections, working connections with other herbalists, but also, friendships, people connected with people that they hadn't seen in a long time. Like, it's just such a beautiful, intimate space. Tickets are limited because I am aware of, the C word numbers, but at the same time, it's still a space for us to come together and learn from one another. So it's an amazing, amazing opportunity. If you have been to herbal conferences and felt like a number, this ain't it. This
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, like, you're gonna be embraced. You're gonna feel the warmth just from the land itself. All that when you come down that dirt road and them Spanish moss just hanging, greeting you, and them ancestors dancing because you came to see them, and my family's built a pond. So there's all the elements that make it there. So it's like so beautiful, so gorgeous, and so serene. And we have vendors, so you'll be able to get products and, um, you know, talk, make those connections with those herbs that you may have just only heard about. So some people will have them to where you can actually purchase, or in products that you can actually use and make that reclamation process, that initiate that for yourself. So it's an amazing weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. And if not, just support anyway. Just come through the website and say, "Hey, Khetnu, thank you," or or maybe next year, or whatever that looks like for you. And we are on social media too, at Gullah Geechee Herbs on Instagram, and on Facebook it's the Gullah Geechee Herbal Gathering. So come through. I post different things. I try to support and post information so that we know about each other and make that connection, because we need to really tap into each other as resources.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it looks like I'm gonna be bringing my behind down to South Carolina. So
Come on, and we say, bring the bookie down here. We want to see you.
it's all right. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for
Thank
sharing your energy, your time, and your wisdom.
thank you for
And
having me. Thank you for this platform, because it's so needed, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
thank you. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, all of y'all lovelies, this has been another Tuesday night couch conversation with the People's Pride Project. Y'all know what it is. Like Ketnu so eloquently put, this is a reclamation. This is the purpose. This is the heart of it. This is what we do. So until next time, be seeing
Woo!
you.